switch back. I'm gonna refresh here and open that up, and there we go. We got a dock
Nice.
there. It's frosted. Still can see some of the content behind. It's kind of got a cool dark theme too. So
What's up, everybody? My name is Derek,
And my name is Casey.
and we're here to bring you a new perspective. This is episode 1 of a multi-part series developing next-gen features in Ignition.
Where we will be doing themes and perspective. Uh, and this is our guest, Reese Tyson. Reese, why don't you
hello.
introduce yourself?
Well, you just did, so I guess my name's Reese.
Welcome,
And
Reese.
thank you. Good to be on. It's good to be on for the first round of this stream for sure. But yeah, my name's Reese. I work at Flexware Innovation. I've been doing Ignition for quite some time, and actually been working with Perspective essentially as soon as it came out. So I have quite the track record there, and would absolutely love to dig into some different ideas and different ways of designing things. So yeah.
Very
All right,
cool.
awesome.
And what are you going to be working on today, Reese?
So some of the content that we're going to be going through is theming in Perspective. I know that's kind of a topic that not everybody has a chance to dig into or takes advantage of per se. But kind of the theming in Perspective that I like to do is in CSS in the background, and kind of creating your own CSS to do some really cool features that aren't able to be taken advantage of just using default, Perspective styles and style classes and so forth. So that's kind of what I'm going to be diving into a little bit.
Sounds
Right.
good. Well, let's get started here.
I'm going to dive in.
Let's dive
right.
right in.
Yeah,
Let's
go.
do it. So, kind of the inspiration behind this content is I have a PC that I have, a personal PC, and I just recently upgraded it to Windows 11. And so, along with that came a lot of really neat, like, theming and styles on the Windows 11 desktop itself. And I was like, you know what? I bet I can duplicate some of that functionality within Perspective and Ignition. And so I took it upon myself to see what I can figure out. And so that's kind of what I'm going to be doing today. So I figured a good place to start it would be to kind of share a little bit about what that Windows 11 desktop looks like. It's kind of give us a good base here. So I'm going to go ahead and open a couple of these images up here. I'm going to scroll all the way to the back here. I think I started at the end. Yeah, there we go. So just a desktop that I have. But you'll notice the first thing right out of the gate is like everything's centered down below, which a traditional, like if you have a Windows 10, which I think most of us probably as engineers do, desktop, that's going to be over on the left. And then like this mostly cloudy type of notifications on the bottom left there are kind of over all the way on the bottom right. They still have that traditional, you got your Wi-Fi status and your cloud and your volume status on the bottom right, but it kind of feels a little bit different as you click through it. So for example, if I was to, let's see if I can scroll, there we go. If we were to click on that little start menu down there at the bottom, you bring up this menu that has all of your different types of apps. And then if you hover over the different apps, you notice I just selected or went to the next page there, or next picture. You have a background color and kind of hover theme. It looks kind of cool. But it's all very appy, kind of widgety flavored. And another thing that you can kind of see on this one, but I'll come back to this in a little bit. But you can kind of see like the car that's in the background. It's
Yeah.
a completely yellow car, but you can kind of see like a yellow tint, like this front facing menu is almost like got a frosted as well as like a grayish background, which I thought was really cool, like a way to show content but still like kind of show the content behind it, I guess, as well.
Yeah.
I don't know, it was kind of cool. And then let's see, clicking through some these other ones. It's just kind of your standard menu, but if you dig into it, like I feel like they did a really good job of like I love dark themes. I mean, who doesn't love a dark theme, right? So I really like their use of the orange here as well. So if I go to, let's see, I went the wrong way there. This one. So they have this primary color, this orangish color, um, for kind of the primary function of the button. But you also notice like inside of this pop-up, we have this cancel button, which it's not really the primary function of this pop-up window. It's kind of like that secondary function, but it's still there. But I like how they use the orange for the primary function and then this like dark grayish for kind of that secondary, not as needed um, function. Because obviously, if you're in this add device pop-up, you're going to want to add a device and not necessarily cancel out of it.
Mhm.
So kind of the orange and the dark gray kind of draws your attention to the specific function, I guess. I keep saying that word, the specific function that you want to achieve there. And then finally, this is the one that I was talking about. I'll come back to later, but you can see like this is even more of a frosted look. Like you can totally see that there's a car behind this,
Mhm.
but it still looks really good. Like it's got rounded corners there at the top, or I guess on all the corners, and then also on the left-hand side of the menu and above the top of the menu, it's got that little bit of margin in there that kind of pushes it away. It just feels really nice and easy on the eyes.
Yeah.
Of course, you have some different content inside of this, but
And
yeah,
do
I
you
don't know.
have
It's just really cool.
Yeah. Do you have any ideas of what kind of content you would put into this?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of different things I feel like you could put into this, and I guess in the framework of a typical ignition application, right? Is kind of what I'm going for here. You could put maybe some like an alarm summary there, or like at the top right, there's that little notification icon for the profile. Maybe you have like a messaging app and you have like a little icon of how many messages just came in, or heck,
Yeah.
even just adding like a messaging app interface inside of this menu. You could
Oh, that'd be
totally
really
do
cool.
that.
That would be
Yeah.
very cool.
Is there something
Or
like that out there? A messaging app?
Well, actually, there is. Um, so
Nice.
for the Build-a-thon last year, I was actually involved with that. It was an awesome opportunity to rub shoulders and hang out with with folks over at Inductive Automation in California. But um, we at Flexware, I created a messaging app that goes from Ignition to Teams using API calls. So it's actually pulling in chat information from a specific team channel. And so one of the unique things that would do is if you put that on HMI and you like gave the user the ability to contact some of the users, maybe like some of the users in kind of the development world or that are actually doing the Ignition development, and back in like in the office, like if they weren't out on the next to the conveyor line
Mhm.
or out in the field or whatever, you could specify your chat and they're like, hey, I need some help, and they could see that pop up in Teams and they could chat back in that same window. So a lot of different possibilities for that chat engine itself, interfacing with Teams. But yeah, that's another thing that I could totally see including in this type of a slide out menu. Um, I mean, you also could throw in weather in there, I suppose, but I guess that would depend on. I would also like the NBA status. Looks like the Lakers
Yeah.
1-1.
And maybe it could be
Which-
customizable, so you could add that in.
Yeah, that's
Like-
true. You could totally turn this into a dashboard component and just add the components that you want and make it kind of user customizable and save
Yeah.
that all that configuration back to the database. Ton of different possibilities there for sure.
Nice.
So that's kind of, I don't know, that was kind of some of the vision and kind of some of the background that led me to creating some different content towards theming and perspective. And whenever I see something like this, I'm always like, I gotta challenge myself and figure out some new stuff, because I hadn't done any of this frosted stuff in the background, and I was like, that would be a really cool, really slick way to do it though. So
Definitely.
yeah.
It's really cool.
So I suppose we can dive into it, huh? Unless we have
Yeah.
any questions in the chat.
No, I don't think we have anything right now.
Not yet. Alrighty. So
Yeah,
I
if you
guess
have any questions, just throw that out there. You guys can ask questions
Yeah.
at any time. We'll get back to you.
Yep.
would love to dialogue here. Absolutely. So first step is, well, we got to create a project. So I already have Ignition installed on here. I already have database installed. Using a SQL database in the back end. We won't actually be using any database stuff today, but just some front end stuff and some theming stuff, CSS. So I'm gonna go ahead and open the designer here. Again, if you want to understand how to install Ignition, well, there's 1,000 different ways, or sorry, 1,000 different pages online that you could totally go up to Inductive University that hit their website and download Ignition, and they give you a lot of information of how to do that. Easy walkthrough. It's like you can install it in like less than 3 minutes, no joke. So go check it out if you haven't installed it yet. But I'm just going to create a new project here. You can see there's a couple other projects in there. I'm going to create this stream. And the reason why is what we're planning on doing here is we're actually planning on creating a project. And then as we build up these streams, we can bring in more content to the stream as well as to the project and just continue to build on top of each other. So maybe try and create a little bit of a structure in the project today. And also add that doc in there if we have some time. So I'm gonna just go ahead and name this stream and stream. Keep it real simple there. Don't want any project templates, parent project, user source. We can leave that all default. Yeah, that's fine. Default. Yeah, that looks all good. So we'll go ahead and create that new project. So this can take a second. If you're familiar with Ignition, you know that right now it's downloading and caching some of all the different designer settings and the project settings. But once we do this once on this specific machine, all of that will be downloaded and it'll be kind of cached there, and it'll be a much quicker startup. So just gotta wait for a second here.
Yeah.
Okie doke. So looks like we have a bunch of tags in here from maybe some other stuff that we were doing. Looks like someone's doing some home automation. Very cool. That may have been me actually at some point. I think it was. Working with a weather API. Hey, maybe we could incorporate some weather API information in the future.
See a crypto bot trigger as well.
Uh-oh.
Very interesting. That's a topic for another day. Maybe stream number 3.
Okay. Deal.
Actually, that could be kind of cool. We could like create an API interface to. I was doing it to Coinbase and pulling back data from that and performing some different analysis using Ignition functions. But
You know, as a
that could be
user of
really cool.
Coinbase, I think I would like
Yeah?
that. Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it could be fun. Many possibilities. They're endless. All right, so first thing that we need to do is we need to create kind of a main page. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new view. Right click on views, create new view. I'm going to call this main. And I'm going to use a Flex container because I much prefer Flex containers over other containers. I'll leave this page URL just the /. I'll let that create itself.
What's the benefits of the Flex container?
Yeah.
Yeah, good question. So, I mean, let me pull up the different types of views here. So you can see on this drop down, we have column container, coordinate container, tab container, breakpoint container, and flex container. Typically, when I create containers, it's either a flex container or it's a coordinate container, depending on your application. But what flex container allows you to do, and kind of the benefits of it really, is since perspective is rendered in a web browser, right? Whether it's Chrome or Safari, or kudos to you if you're still using Internet Explorer.
Oh, no.
Rose.
Yeah.
Or Opera.
Oh, I don't
Oh,
even.
no.
I don't
Oh,
think I've ever used
no.
Opera.
I use Opera sometimes.
Do you?
I do.
Oh, man. Okay. All right.
It's
Well, kudos to you.
yeah.
So, anyways, since Perspective is rendered in a web browser, it allows you to be, you can view that information on anywhere, right? You can view it on your phone, you can view it on a tablet, you can view it on a desktop. Like, there's a lot of different ways you can view that data, and so Flex containers allows us to be flexible.
I
If
see what you
can-
did there.
If I can use that. It allows you to resize the components a lot easier, whereas a coordinate container would be your typical drag and drop, and then it resizes from there. But it always tries to keep that aspect ratio of the content on the page. So if you were to try and smush that into a phone, like all the content in there is gonna be like very small and hard to read. Whereas Flex containers, you can be flexible on how you wrap the data and how you change and manipulate the data. So that's why I almost always will just default to Flex container. I'd say 9.5 times out of 10 that it'll suffice for all the different types of views that you would need.
Gotcha. I'll have to use those more often.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely worth it, especially on more dashboardy type applications, or if you're doing like a configuration, like more traditional web app type of applications. It does a really good job. If you're doing like HMI SCADA, there are definitely benefits to going the XY container route or the coordinate container route. So excuse me.
Sure.
So this is going to be my main page, and what I want to do is I want to have a main page kind of taking up most of the screen, and then I also want to, if we were to go back to those pictures, we have that taskbar down below. So I think I'm going to have a main page and then a taskbar down below that I can toggle my dock open and closed. So I'm actually going to create 2 embedded views here. And I'm gonna just click on that, do a Control C and a Control V there on my keyboard. And I'm gonna make this top view grow shrink 100% so that it pushes all the content. And that's actually the difference right there between coordinate and a flex, is the grow and shrink capabilities. So it's gonna grow and shrink based off of other content on the page, not necessarily the whole content of the view.
Mhm.
So I'm going to change this to, well, this one's going to be like 60 pixels or so tall, maybe 50, 60. Yeah, it looks pretty close to the size of the taskbar down below there. So I'd say that looks pretty good. Maybe I'll make this 50. It looks just a slight bit tall. Yeah, it looks good. And then whenever I add stuff in here, I always like to change the name of these to what they actually are. So I always leave it, embedded view or label, and then I do underscore. Let's call this like main, maybe. And then this one's going to be embedded view taskbar. And that's just typically how I'll name stuff. So somebody behind me can see, oh, it's an embedded view. If they aren't familiar with that symbol, it's an embedded view, and this is the content that's in there. So it's just a handy way to kind of document things. So next thing I want to do is I'm going to create maybe I'll create actually a folder for all my docs. So if we have other docs in the future that we want to create, we can put them in here and keep things organized. And then I'm going to create another view here and call this one, let's see, maybe we name this one notifications. Does that sound good? Kind of that left menu.
Yeah, I think so.
Go ahead and do flex container. I'm not going to create a page URL. So that's going to be my notifications menu, but then I also need the taskbar down below. So let me add that view in there too. So taskbar, Bard. Let's switch that to flex container. And so I got that. Let's go ahead and actually change this a little bit since we've created it. So I'm going to go up to my taskbar. One of the things I like to do when I create views is just kind of use what it's generally going to look like, so I get a decent idea of like the height and whatnot of the content going to be in it. So I'm going to change this to 50 pixels because that's how big I made my embedded view just a moment ago on the main page. And what I want to do on here is I want to have kind of that same layout. Remember how we had the things on the left and then centered apps in the middle with the Windows button, and then kind of the clock and notification stuff on the right. So maybe we want to kind of do something like that. So I'm going to just drag some flex containers in here. And you'll notice that this is actually stacking from top to bottom. I want to stack from left to right, and we can do that by just coming over here to the row and flipping those. So now we should have the ability to stack those in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy that and paste twice inside of that, and that'll give me 3 of these flex containers.
Okay.
And then all I need to do is pop this to a 1, and it'll take up all the content there. So it's pushing these 2 items all the way to the left and the right, and then just taking up the rest of the space in the middle. So that's exactly what I want there.
A question, just in case there's people who don't know. So there's a little bullseye next to your root container. Does that...
Uh-huh.
Do you want to explain what that means? for
Oh,
in
you
case
mean
people don't know.
this guy right here,
Yeah.
right on the root container.
Yep.
So there's like this little, yeah, little bullseye. So that means I'm deep selected.
Okay.
And so you'll notice that I was deep selected there. And so when I added those flex containers,
Hmm.
they became children of my root. But if I wanted
Okay.
to come in here and, for example, I want to maybe we want to add some icons inside of this specific container. Let
Mhm.
me rename this really quick, so I don't lose my train of thought here. Maybe I'll
Yep.
name this apps, and then I'll name this one like settings, maybe. So yeah, so back to the deep selection here. So the deep select allows me to actually drag components on. So for example, I want to bring in an icon into this, right? To maybe have have that taskbar toggle, or not the taskbar, the notifications menu toggle in and out there. But if I just click this icon down there on the bottom right and drag this over, drops it in actually as a child of my root container. So
Okay.
you see that stacked in there.
Yep.
So
So that's
even though
not what
you're
I want.
selected, doesn't mean you're deep selected.
Exactly. So we need to deep select inside of that container. So we can do that a couple different ways. We can actually double click on there, and now you'll notice like all that content on the right is kind of grayed out.
Mhm.
And we have this little bullseye right next to it, which is exactly what we want. The other way that
Okay.
you can do it, so you notice I just clicked on root and it undeep selected notifications. But you can actually right click on there and deep select right there too. So you can do it one of two ways depending on what you're doing. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually just Control X and cut that icon. And I'm going to come over here and deep select that notifications. And once I'm deep selected there, now I'm just going to paste. I don't have to like click inside of it or anything. I'm just going to paste. I'm already deep selected and it'll drop that right in there. So yeah, that's kind of what that deep select is. It's actually gets kind of confusing if you first start out and using flex containers and kind of a different methodology of doing it. But once you get the hang of it, like you'll figure out that it's a lot easier to just deep select and drag those in instead of trying to drag them in and you're not deep selected. Well, the content's not even going to go in there, so you got to be deep selected. So I guess on this taskbar on the left-hand side here, we want to change this icon to maybe something a little bit different, like something more notification-like. So let's go to our icons and maybe look for something that would make a little bit more sense than a smiley face. Do you guys have any ideas here?
A message
Yeah.
icon.
Oh, there's one. I see one. Yeah.
Where at? Like
Right
this one here?
side. Yeah. Any of those. Like a little chat
I'm
bubble
wondering though,
or.
that almost looks like something that I put over here on the right though, you know?
Oh.
I wonder if
What about
maybe like
a
a
bell or
bell or
a
something.
chart or an arrow? Like trending, or there's a leaf or an envelope. There's a leaf. Yeah.
Oh, I like that. Let's use that. What the
Sure.
heck?
Why not?
You can change it later.
Yeah.
And then maybe let's just put some other icons in here just to like fill up some content and give us a little bit more stuff. So I'm just gonna copy paste that twice in there. And then I want this to be completely centered. So I'm just gonna throw this right into Justify Center there on the right hand side. It's gonna pop that information right there in the middle. So if I was to come over to my taskbar now and kind of drag around this, like that looks exactly what I want. I want it to be centered, no matter how wide or how skinny or wide that is.
Mhm.
And I always want it to be right in the middle of the taskbar if I drag this up and down. So that's looking pretty good there. And maybe I'll just change these just slightly here. Maybe I want to make I think there's a shortcut. You can just do home. Yeah, looks good.
Hey Reese, you
Yeah.
were dragging that around,
Uh-huh.
and you mentioned mobile earlier. How would that look in mobile? How many pixels is mobile?
Yeah.
Just
That's it.
curious.
Yeah, I mean, kind of a general rule of thumb that I go with is I always try to design the width of my content to 350 pixels wide. Because typically on most modern phones, they'll be at least 350 pixels wide. If you plan for the smallest, more often than not, it'll work for bigger size stuff. But if you start with designing for the bigger size stuff and try to scrunch it down, almost always it won't work. So I always try to start with that mobile focus and then kind of change it up if I need to. So if I like squeeze this down to 350 pixels, like that still looks pretty good, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty good there.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Then maybe let's change this one to something else as well. Maybe like a user profile page or something.
Yeah.
Sure, that looks pretty good. I like that. And then I kind of like the idea of let's just add another component in here, another icon, and we'll make it that messaging that you were talking about earlier, Casey. So I'm going to snap this all the way to the right and change the one here to, what was that, like a message?
Yeah.
That's
Chat bubble.
kind of what it was.
Yeah.
Chat?
Any of
Can't
those I
spell
think
it
would
right.
look good.
Yeah, I think I like this because then maybe if we have notifications in the future or something.
Could change
Well,
it.
This is kind of notification, isn't it?
Well, but a notification could also be a bell, but you could also use a bell for alarms.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea. Maybe I maybe go back to your original idea. Maybe put the chat bubble over on the left side, and then if we do put chat in there, we can toggle between these two different icons if we have new chat messages to grab. Whereas like this leaf wouldn't have those two different types.
Right.
So maybe let's go that route. So I'll make this something. I don't know that it really matters at this point. Maybe let's make it like this little status bar. That looks good. And then I'll switch this to our chat. Is it chat bubble? I think that's what it was. Yeah.
Yes.
But I kind of want to make that. Yeah, let's make it no outline. That's what we want. Perfect. Cool. So that's looking like a pretty good taskbar there, I would say. So now we need to create. Well, we already created that. Why don't we also create our notification doc as well while we're inside of our docs? And just put a little bit of content in there so we can see that doc for real. So I'm gonna maybe make this a little bit different size. Again, just try to resize that to what I'm trying to build. So 450 looks about the size of, if I'm remembering back to that side menu, it's about that size, I would say. So maybe I'll just actually make it 450 just because I'm one of those guys. I have to be exact. Uh-oh.
Oh, no.
4,500. That would not be good.
And if somebody was looking for more like precise measurements, what would be a good way of finding those?
In what way do you mean
Like,
precise measurements?
Say I wanted it to look good on my Pixel 5
Mm-hmm.
or just in an iPhone in general. Do you have
Sure.
any tips on how to do that?
So, I mean, if someone comes to me and is like, hey, I want it to be on this device, like, obviously, the first question is to ask is how wide and how tall. So you could totally Google that.
Of course.
But what I oftentimes do is in Chrome, they have a developer tool. And this really allows you to kind of test on a lot of different devices
Okay.
instead of just a specific one. So if you go to the ... there on the top right, more tools, and go into developer tools, you can also hit F12 inside of the Chrome browser. Hot tip. And then you click on this little device icon thing there at the top.
Yep.
You got this responsive mode that you can drag and see the different size. You can see up top
Nice.
like this is changing to the different sizes as I drag that. You can also do a top to bottom drag as well there.
Okay.
But then there's also some pre-built like devices. So if you got like an iPhone 12 Pro there,
Okay.
you can see that content as how it would render on there. So this is a really handy tool. And in fact, I think you can import more devices in here as well. These are just
Interesting.
some of the default devices that are already included there. So, but if you don't have the device, you could also just throw it to responsive and switch it to how wide it is there, after you Google that dimension.
So then
That's
while
really
you
neat.
were, developing, if you had your app ready to be put in, to bring it up on Chrome or whatever, then you could actively move and change
for
this
sure.
to see like, how does this look?
Definitely. And in
Okay.
fact, you can even use this little rotate button too if you want to like see what it is in landscape versus portrait.
That's very handy.
So yeah, definitely, definitely. I pretty much only develop in Chrome because of that, mainly because of that
Right.
tool, and I have all my stuff in Google. So
Of course.
yeah, they can totally wipe all my stuff, I'm sure. But yeah, so notifications dock here. So switching back. So next thing I want to do is maybe I just want to put like a little. I think it had. Let me open that back up. Let me get a little refresher here. So if I open up this information, this is a Windows server, so it doesn't have like all the built-in like viewable apps that a normal Windows 10 would have. So I had to download this free app, 11 View. I've never used it before. Probably getting a virus right now, but
Oh, no.
but you can see there's like I kind of maybe want to make this date up here at the top, and then we can make some room for some content. So let's maybe make like a date and then put another flex container in there for some content down below. So let's go and drag in some more flex containers. So throw that one in there. I do want them to stack vertically, so that's good. I don't need to switch it to row. I'm gonna automatically switch this name to, let's make it maybe header. And then I'm gonna Control C, Control V, paste that. And I'm gonna say maybe content down here. So, I mean, as I'm doing this, like I'm just thinking generally of how I want this page laid out. It's a very different way of thinking than like an XY container or coordinate container, sorry, or kind of that traditional drag and drop SCADA. Like you kind of got to think of the structure of the page and what content you want to see in there, and then just kind of structure the flex containers accordingly. So that's kind of what I like to do when I first come to a brand new page, is like structure the flex containers to react how I would expect them to react. And I want the header to always stay consistent, right? I always want that to be about that big. And typically I'll make that 50 pixels for a header. You know, that's a good go-to header there.
Yeah.
And then I'm just going to kind of grow shrink this all the way to consume the rest of that content. So I'm going to go ahead and throw just a quick label in here. Just to put some content in there. I'll center that label up by justifying it there. And maybe grab the, let's actually make this say the date. So if we go to our expression, we can put in there, oh, what's the date format? And you guys remember what the date format is? I know it's something like this, and then it's like now,
yeah,
comma, and then you put in the string, and I want to say it's like HH colon MM colon. I don't want seconds. I think I just want the AM and PM. I want to
Was
say
it one H or two? She didn't want the 0 out front, right?
Oh, yeah,
good catch.
0 up front.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just I'm kind of curious now how that would look if you if it was a 12. I bet it just shows 12. It's just like the minimum amount. So, well, that looks pretty good. That's one handy thing about, if you haven't used perspective, has this little binding preview. So the content that's inside of this, you'll be able to see that coming back right there before you even hit OK. So that's kind of cool. So I'm gonna do that. And I also don't love that it's wrapped. So let's unwrap it. And we could just do that by dragging this out. But kind of a cool little tip, something I learned throughout the years, is you can actually switch this to this basis to auto, and it'll just take the size and the width, or I should say the width of the content inside of, in this case, the label, and make that however big it needs to be. And I'm just going to make it 0, 0 so it doesn't actually shrink. So that'll actually center that up as well. So that's great. So maybe I also, if maybe we talked about, maybe we could do some navigation. So I'm just gonna throw like maybe like a menu tree in here. I don't like that a ton. Maybe let's just throw like we'll just leave it how it is. That's all we need, just to show that there's some content in there. So I'll go ahead, and that's good there. We got the notification, we got the taskbar. So I think the next thing that we need to do is we need to go back to our main page and embed our taskbar into that view there. So let's go select my taskbar embedded view, one that we renamed there. And we'll go ahead and grab the taskbar view. So that pops that in there, what we just created earlier. And now we need to open that dock. So let's go back to our taskbar and create an action on that icon. So let's go to taskbar here. We'll go to I just always, if I need to go through multiple levels of containers, I just keep double clicking it. It'll just keep taking me further and further.
That's what I do.
Yeah.
Just mash it.
Yeah, instead of coming over here and figuring out which one I need to go to, just
Yeah.
mash the key or the mouse.
Do you do that, Derek?
Click.
I do not do that. I right
really?
click and yep.
Do you right click deep select?
Yeah,
Oh,
because sometimes I don't know if maybe I don't click fast enough, or maybe it's too fast, but it doesn't drill down.
Oh.
So
Interesting.
yeah,
Interesting.
Too
Okay.
Well, this is kind of a cool feature. I've never seen this before in a drop, so I've never used this. Wrap in container. It's kind of interesting.
Hmm.
Huh. I don't even know what that does, to be honest. It's the first time I've seen
it will put it in a flex container for you.
Or coordinate or
Yeah,
Flexware.
Really?
Yeah, I've used the flex, but
Huh.
it automatically puts one in there, so you don't have to copy paste.
That's pretty cool. Shout out to the IA devs there.
Yeah.
Little shortcut there.
Yep.
All right, so what I want to do is I want to configure some events. So on my mouse events on this icon, I want to, on my click action, I'm going to add an action, and I want to do the dock action. Now, you could definitely do scripting actions on that and script this also. I think it's what, system.perspective.dock?
Open dock.
Open dock. Yeah. You could totally do that inside of scripting, but if it's docs, oftentimes I will just use the dock action because you have this little toggle radio button, and that's gonna determine, that way you don't have to like do an if dock open then close, else close or open. It's just you click this and it takes care of all of that for me. So this is gonna be my notification dock, and that's just an arbitrary, it's my notification dock, so I made that its identifier. That right now I haven't mapped that to anything, but I will here in a second. So I'm going to just create that. Now it should toggle that open and close. And I think that's all I need here. Switch back to my perspective page, and I got my main, but I also want to add my dock to the shared settings. So I selected shared settings, and this allows me to share my dock across all my screens. I want this dock to slide out no matter what screen I'm on. So I'm gonna add it to the shared settings. You can do that just by clicking on the add here. Go to notifications, and I think I need to change one little setting in here. Oh, clicked off of it. Click on the little pencil. Don't want to push the content. I want to cover the content, right? Because I want to be able to see the content behind it and kind of have that frosted look. I'm gonna make the size 450 because that was the size of my dock or my notifications dock. And I want to hide the handle. And here's where I have to enter in the notifications. Was this plural? Did you guys remember if that was plural or singular? Did I add the S on there?
I believe so.
We'll see.
Oh no.
Too lazy to go back and check.
Trial and error.
Visible. Trial and error. That's what we like to do. I'll go ahead and Control S that. Control save. We should be able to launch this. So let's go and launch the URL. Womp womp.
Oh no.
Trial expired.
Aw.
Trial. There we go.
Luckily,
I'll
you can do
refresh
that
that
at
page.
unlimited times.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
That's handy. Okay, so it looks like my dock is open right now. I want it to be closed, and I'm guessing that I'm not gonna actually be able to click on this toggle because my dock is over the top. So I think what I want to do is when my mouse exits, make it close automatically for me. Kind of maybe a neat little feature. I don't even know if that does that in Windows 11. I bet it does, because like once you're done with the notifications, you go to something else, like you kind of want it just to close on its own. So maybe let's do that. So go back to my shared settings. I think I need to make this content. What is on demand? I think is what I want to make this. That way I can toggle it on and off. If I make it visible, it's always going to be visible, and then I can close it if I want. But I want to make this on demand. Hit OK. And then let's go back to my notifications. And I can put actually an event on the root container of the notifications. I'm gonna right click on that. Had to make sure that's deep selected. Don't, you're in here and you're deep selected and you do this, it's gonna go onto that header. So we don't want it on the header, we want it on the whole container there. So I'm gonna click that. You can actually right click here too, that's kind of handy. So configure events, on mouse, leave sounds about right. I'm gonna do another doc action. I'm gonna close the doc here. Notifications, plural. Looks good. I'm gonna save that and see what.
Could you just hit toggle again?
Did I do toggle again?
You did close,
did I do
but I was
close?
just curious.
I think you could. Yeah, I
Since
don't see why not. If it's already open, then it should be, you should be good to go. If it's already open, it would just close it.
Yeah.
I don't know. You probably could. Try it out. I'll click on this. Uh-oh. That's not working. Let's go back to
Should have toggled it.
the designer. Should have toggled it. Exactly right. I should have toggled it. So we'll go to taskbar. Go to my icon. Configure events. Aha! It wasn't plural.
Oh,
We'll make it plural. So everything else is plural. And I also want to add a little style on here. Oh no! I just cut that. Let me paste that back in.
Oh
Should
no.
still have it spent. Yeah, we're good. We're good. We're good. So I'll go ahead and add a value. I want to add a pointer when I hover over this. So I'm gonna do cursor pointer. And you can also come in here and select that underneath your miscellaneous too. There's this cursor pointer. I just knew what it was because I've done it 1,000 times, so I just typed it in there. But now when I hover, you should get that hand there. So that's what I want, like that. Save that. Switch back to Chrome, and we'll click on this. Opens up, and I moved out of it and it closes it. Yeah, and I can't actually close that when the menu's over. We could probably get around that, but with this, we kind of have this closing on its own there. That'll be sufficient for now. So next thing I want to do, I want to add some content to the background here, so that way we can see the frosted look. So let's add some content to the main page. So I'm gonna switch back. A lot of times what I like to do is I like to add the content similar to what I might be designing for, but not actually create it, just so I have that test, I'm able to test different functionalities. So I'm gonna go to my root container of my main, and I want to just add in a background image. So I actually have pre-selected a background image, so I'm gonna copy and paste this in from my local computer here. I'm gonna paste on top of the style. So what that just did is I just pasted, overflow auto, whatever. And then you can see there's this background position, repeat, size, and background image. And these properties up here, these top three, are literally just configuring the image. And then the background image, I'm specifying the URL here of the image that I'm using. So you can look at this guy. So if you want to use the same image, there you go. You can type it in, you can pause it or whatever. If you're viewing this on YouTube, I suppose the stream, I don't know. You could find another image, I guess.
Yeah.
Google.
Google.
it. So I'm gonna hit save and just see what that does for me. So that's pretty good. You can barely see these icons. They're still there. Looks like I have one there. Oh yeah, I still got my cursor thing. So I'm gonna click on that. And you can see it's all background, but it did open. There's still my time right there. Barely you can see it. So let's maybe make this background frosted, right? So it'll kind of stand out from the background image there. So in order to do this, we could go into those CSS properties that I was just in, or we could jump into the styles that we have over here, or we could jump into the CSS in the background. I mean, I'm going to do that. So I'm gonna go through this a little quick. Where it looks like we're running up against time here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just copy and paste my CSS dark theme here. Go ahead and continue that. Made a second one there. I'm going to rename this stream because that's what we're using. Go ahead and hit
Okay.
continue, or that's what we're doing. I'm going to edit this with Notepad++, another one that I added in here. I'm going to get rid of this root, these root colors. I don't want those root colors. Those are just kind of default, but you can see I'm inheriting all the dark styles that Perspective has to offer right there.
Mhm.
And then what I want to do is I want to create a container class. Now, again, I already have this on my local, so I'm going to paste this in and talk through this really quick. So .psc stands for, well, dot, then perspective style class. And if you specify this in front of a CSS, automatically you are able to use that inside of Perspective. So what I'm doing is I have that margin, that kind of gap between the menu, the notification menu and the desktop. I have the padding in there to just pad some of the content inside of the container. The border radius, talked about that. And then I have this backdrop filter blur. So this blur gives me kind of that frosted effect. And then I'm also making the background color just slightly tinted gray. And you'll notice I didn't go a full gray. I left it 80% opacity there. Those last two digits are, I think it's called the alpha property. So we got the R for the G and the B, RGB, and then the hex code for the transparent there. So it's 80 on that guy.
Do you call this in place of a style class?
You can, yeah. So essentially what I did was I just created a style class on the gateway files and I named my style class container. So you'll notice that I'm going to save this and I can actually use that style class right out of the gate. So I'm going to hit yes. I want to launch this in administrator mode so I can save those changes. And then over here, instead of creating that style class up here, see inside of the styles here, I don't have access to that background like fade. What was that? The background filter. That's not available. So I had to come here to specify it in one place. Otherwise, I'd have to specify backdrop dash filter on every single one of my components. And I only want to specify that once right there. So I would have to come over to here and create my value and do backdrop dash filter, and then I could do my fade, all that kind of stuff there. But I don't want to do that for every single one. I want to do that in one spot and then use that. So I'm gonna go to my notifications, go to my root container, and we can actually just add that container class in here. Container. That actually didn't do anything because I also need to change the style theming class that it's using. So you'll notice back in here, I have like Aspen Dark, Burgers, Dark. Looks like somebody's been creating some themes here.
Burgers.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued for the
Maybe-
burgers one.
kind of getting hungry here. Maybe we could talk about this one in another stream. That's something that I've been working on.
Okay.
Anyways, another teaser. I also have the stream, so I need to reference that stream class right there. So if we go to my perspective settings page up here at the top right, notice there's this theme. Now if I drop down, here's all that information in here. Now I think this list loads when you start up the designer, so it doesn't actually have stream in there. Oh, it does. Cool. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It just depends. So I'm going to select stream, and now if I switch back to notifications, I should have that style applied, which I do. So you can see there's some margin, there's some padding in my rounded corners. So that looks pretty good. I'm going to hit save there. Switch back to perspective. And toggle that open. Oh, I bet I got to refresh. So I saved, but I need to refresh my styles. So every time perspective session loads, it's going to load the styles from the CSS.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to refresh that. See what we get here. Oh, since we changed it to dark, these icons switched to light. Nice.
Ooh, look at that.
Kinda handy. And there we go. You can kind of see behind, they still got that cloudy look there. We got the rounded corners, we got the gap in the margin there. So that's looking pretty good. But I don't love that little shadow there on the right-hand side of that menu. Let's try and get rid of that. So I can actually override properties in the style classes as well. So if I switch back to my notepad, I'm gonna create a little bit more room here. Again, I'm gonna copy in something from my local here, and paste that in. And you can see I have the docked view. That's what it is. Dock cover and shadow left, shadow right, shadow top, shadow bottom. And then I'm specifying the box shadow. Now I'm making the shadow 0, and then I'm actually also making that completely transparent. So even if there was some shadow there, I just completely get rid of it. So I think we only need to do the right shadow here, but I'm guessing if we do something on the left, maybe in the future, probably don't want that shadow there either. We kind of want to save or keep that same container style there. So I'm gonna go ahead and save once again, Control S, switch back. I'm gonna refresh here and open that up, and there we go. We got a dock
Nice.
there. It's frosted. Still can see some of the content behind. It's kind of got a cool dark theme too. So yeah, that's kind of what I was shooting for. I think again we can add some more content in here. Maybe we can have some like feedback from some of the comments on what kind of information we'd like to add in here. Maybe some different notifications or API calls, or maybe other different types of things that you guys would want to see out there.
Sure.
So if you're watching on YouTube, throw it in the comments. If you're watching on the stream, throw it in the chat. We can work through those things. So yeah, maybe we can tackle some of that content next week. Put some content in here. Maybe we can make these change pages or something. Maybe have like a user login page and like a home page with a dashboard of showing OEE or weather or whatever it might be. So a lot of possibilities there.
Definitely.
So yeah.
You
Cool.
said next week. I think next show is next month.
Oh, you're right. It's not next. We're doing these on a monthly cadence, not a weekly. That would be too much content for me to create in a week.
Yep.
Well, we do
For
have some
us to
stuff to look
create.
forward to from today's conversation. We got
Yeah.
CryptoBot and hamburgers.
It's
and
true.
Weather
It,
app.
it is almost dinner time, right?
Yes.
Getting hungry.
All right. Do we need to go over any recaps or anything? I mean, you kind of did it.
Yeah, we talked about the notification.
Yeah.
I mean, that's essentially all we did, right? It's just kind
Right.
of created a skeleton of the project and then brought in one of the features of that Windows 11 theme, which is that frosted look behind that. So now it's just a matter of content, creating some cool content, I think.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah. Let's switch back to our just chatting screen here. So I don't believe there are any questions. Oh, we got, a couple comments. Looks like
Okay.
Buff and Mike said it looks great. They love it,
Nice.
which is awesome. We really appreciate it.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Do we want to recap some of the stuff that came up during the stream, like the exchange, some resources available, Inductive University?
Yeah,
like that.
we could go through some of that stuff. So, I mean, if you're interested in that Teams chat, the integration that I was talking about, you can actually just go to Ignition Exchange here.
And I did put the command in chat as well.
Okay. We can, the link and whatnot. But you
Oh,
can just Google Ignition
hang on.
Exchange.
I wasn't showing your screen.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'll go ahead and accept that. But you can there's a ton of other resources you can download and just use. But if you Google,
This is free?
or not Google, sir. Oh yeah, 100% free. People have
Wow.
actually created some really cool stuff and put them on here. So I would definitely just browse through some of the different projects, check them out. But you could do Teams. Yeah, Microsoft Teams chat integration. So looks like 97 people have downloaded it so far. And that should just be able to integrate. And I think you just have to specify the API key and the channel key, if I remember correctly.
Very cool.
Anything else from the exchange available?
Oh, there's
From
a
us?
bunch of stuff. So I guess I could type in Flexware, maybe. Oh, maybe not. Maybe type in my name. I think that'll search. So all these resources that we created as Flexware for the Buildathon, they're just on my name because, well, I uploaded them. But there's a lot of different talk box. So actually you could do video conferencing purely within Ignition, which is pretty cool.
Wow.
We have a prediction engine. So using some of the built-in AI functions. You can like predict when you're going to run out of like a material, or say maybe you got a chemical in a tank and it's slowly ramping down. You can predict when that's going to cross a certain threshold and throw an alarm on that. A lot of different possibilities. We talked about Microsoft Teams chat there, and then just some faceplate HMI library information there of some different frameworks and whatnot. So
Very
yeah,
cool.
a lot of different information on there. Again, check it out. A lot of different things. If you want to learn more about Ignition, and we talked about Flex containers a lot, talked about coordinate containers, docs, and all that kind of stuff. If you want to go to Inductive University,
So put
there's
that in
a
chat.
ton. Yeah, there's a ton of different possibilities. You can actually go through this whole thing online for free and earn
Mhm.
your core credential and get a certificate. So there's, like, you can see there's over here on the left side all these different courses. And then if you were to click inside of one of these, like right now we're on Getting Started Ignition Overview, but if you were to go to some of these, like you can see like there's a lot of different videos in here. So tons of content
Yeah.
if you want to dig into different areas of Ignition. So
Yep.
highly recommend.
Their user manual is fantastic as well. Lots of resources.
Yeah. Yep. We can dig into
Definitely.
that more in later streams too.
I think that sounds good.
Some of that information.
Thanks again, Reese.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to do it.
All right.